What could I have done? If I was with you, this wouldn't have happened.
Here we are. So what I want to ask you is, are you the kind of person who is a monster and randomly kills people? Or are you the kind of person who has had a hard life and has their best friend begging them to do something they shouldn't have done?
911, what is your emergency?
I'm at a friend's house. He's out of town, and I came here to check on his wife, and she's dead on the floor.
On June 29, 2015, police in Bonita Springs, Florida received this chilling 911 call.
And there's a hammer at the side, and she's bashed in the back of the head.
A co-worker had just discovered his boss's lifeless body in a half-dry pool of blood. For the police, it looked like a robbery gone wrong, but little did they know that they were stepping into a twisted world of lies, betrayal, and unspeakable cruelty. This is 46-year-old Teresa Sievers, a well-known holistic medicine physician, a valedictorian, and a loving mother of two. She was described as a giver, a helper to the less fortunate, and a dedicated soul who helped all of her patients with love and care.
I think Dr. Sievers is bringing to the community the things that we've all been longing to hear. We all know that there is something else to healings other than a pill.
She has helped me with medical issues as well as some personal issues. And I am so grateful every day that I have met her.
And I really have huge admiration for Dr. Sievers.
Teresa was also a proud breadwinner of the house. Her life was full of love and success. But one unfortunate event turned this fairy tale into a horrific nightmare. On June 27, 2015, Teresa was on a family vacation in Connecticut when she was asked to fly back home to see some patients at her clinic the next morning. Leaving her kids in the care of her husband, Mark Sievers, she boarded the first flight home and landed at Southwest Florida International Airport that night. Little did anyone know, this was the last time we'd see her alive and well. The next day, she didn't show up at work, which immediately alarmed her staff, as she would never miss work or even show up late. When her assistant, Sandra Hoskins, grew more concerned, she called Mark. Teresa's mother recalls a rather weird reaction from Mark to Sandra's call.
Sandra called Mark on his cell phone.
Okay.
I guess it was about 9:30 Monday morning.
Right.
And says, Mark, doctor hasn't come in yet. And that's not like her. You think maybe she overslept? So he said, well, not likely, He says, she might be running a few minutes late, but I don't, she was always on time to get to work. Mm-hmm. So now he's trying to get a hold of her. I'm trying to get a hold of her, texting her and this and that, and we're not getting any answers. And he was already in tears. He didn't know what had happened, but he's already in tears, thinking the worst. And I'm saying, Mark, you got to be calm and collected. We got to see that there's got to be a rational reason for this,
Hoskins was worried and asked Mark if she should check on her. But his answer was even more suspicious.
I called Mark and I said, Mark, I know you told me not to go to your house, but I don't know what's going on. And his words were, do not tell anyone doctor is dead.
Eventually, one of the co-workers drove to Teresa's house to check on her. What he found at the scene was far more horrific than he had anticipated.
She was supposed to go to work today at 9 o'clock. I knocked on the front door, and nobody answered. The lights were on. I could see her purses on the countertop, and she didn't answer. I pounded, and he gave me the key code to get into the garage door. I opened up the garage door, and the door leading to it was open. One of the dogs ran out. I don't know if he left or not. And I walked in. I just opened up the door, or walked in the door, and she's dead on the floor. And there's a big bash in the back of her head.
During this entire time, Mark worried in her mother's house, wondering what had happened, until eventually...
And that's when he called Mark and says, Mark, you gotta come home. Now. Fast. And I guess he must have told her that she was dead. And then we both were up in the yard screaming, crying.
As the investigation ran its course, the members of the Sievers family, friends, and co-workers were questioned about their whereabouts. Statewide Security, Sievers' alarm company, said that the alarm was disarmed at 6:09 a.m. Sunday, June 28th, with the code used by Bonnie Sievers, mother of Teresa's husband, Mark. She activated the code at 8:01 a.m., and then deactivated it at 4:13 p.m. when she returned to feed the animals. She didn't reactivate it again because she was having trouble with the code, which she believed was her biggest mistake.
I was not there at 6:09 in the morning.
It was turned off at 6:09. You reactivated and rearmed at, I know you can't see, he's trying to make a bit. Rearmed at 8:01. That's what we're trying to work out.
Oh my God. But when I went there Sunday morning, the code was on. I don't know if motion detectors were done or not. But when I left, because he said you don't have to set the code because he's concerned about the motion with the thing, so I didn't set it.
And this was Saturday?
Sunday.
Sunday?
So I really feel that it's my fault.
You cannot blame yourself.
I should have said it. Left in the afternoon.
The interesting thing here is that her son instructed her not to set it, knowing full well that his wife would return at night to go to the house. Speaking of...
I love you, man. You girls. Strength. Okay.
Mark Sievers was a Christian man, grief-stricken and broken as the realization of raising his 2 kids dawned on him. When Teresa ran the Restorative Health and Healing Center, Mark was working as an office manager there. His responsibilities weren't that much around the office, which allowed him to be a stay-at-home dad most of the time. Of course, all the cries in the world won't stop the detectives from investigating this as a possible uxoricide case. And to do that, they have to ascertain what their married life was like, and whether any suspicious acts were committed by him. We know that he wasn't there when the killing happened, which exonerates him to a certain point, but in this 4-hour-long sob story questioning, the detectives will try to get as much personal information as possible to understand the dynamics of their marriage.
Teresa, I keep hoping this is just a dream. I'm gonna turn around, come in the door. And watch them have breakfast. I'm gonna wake up with you in my arms.
I'm just going to make you aware that this is going to be a digital recorded statement. Okay, here we go. Just going to get some more. Just going to get your basic information from you again. I've got the case number down. So it's 314-239-0173. Mr. Sievers, I've represented myself today to you as a law enforcement officer, is that correct?
Yes, Detective.
And you do realise being a law enforcement officer in the state of Florida, I'm empowered to take a sworn statement from you.
Yes.
Okay, with that in mind, do you raise your right hand for me, please?
Sure.
Do you swear the testimony you're about to give is going to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Okay, you can lower your right hand, sir. Just for the record, state your name one more time for me.
Mark Sievers.
And what is your relationship to...
That was good.
Okay, take your time.
Even the slightest mention of her name unleashes the waterworks. But during all this, we have to be objective and maintain our stance on him as a possible suspect, unless there's evidence that says otherwise.
Now, just going to go over your timeline again, very briefly, because I know we have discussed a lot of it. What day did you fly up to LaGuardia Airport?
Friday morning.
Okay, who did you fly up with?
Your family.
Okay. And what airline did you fly up with?
Delta.
Delta. And where did you fly to?
LaGuardia.
Okay. And you rented a vehicle, is that correct?
We did. Oh, okay. We rented a car from Payless.
And what sort of vehicle was that?
A 4-door. White silver car.
Do you know the model or anything?
I don't know. I can get that information.
That's okay. Well, you drove to where, sir?
We drove to New York, to the house we were staying at for the weekend.
Do you recall the address there?
It was 80-something. It was 80, and then LaGuardia was here. Yeah. The house was here. Connecticut was here. So it was north of the airport, but south of Connecticut.
So sort of midway between the airport and Connecticut?
I believe so.
Okay. And how long does it take you to drive there?
Maybe 3 hours. We had a lot of traffic. We stopped at the grocery store.
Okay. Did you drive all the way? Or did
I drove the whole way.
Okay. And was anybody else in the vehicle with you? Did you meet with anybody?
My wife and kids. No one else.
You didn't meet with anybody else in the airport that came with you that flew in from other destinations?
No, we were the only ones flying in.
Okay. So you drove and you stopped. Do you recall where you stopped?
If I knew we were going over these, I would have looked all this information up. Some health food store or an organic place. It was something green. Okay. Evergreen. It was just a couple of miles from the house we stayed at.
Okay, so you're probably about 2.5 miles, 3/4 miles into the journey?
No, just from the house we were staying at. So it was hours into the journey.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. So about 2 and 3/4 hours.
Hours, yes. Just, I said miles. Okay. Yes, something like that. And so we had our talk with him on the way to the airport. And when I called her, she's like, how are the girls? And I said, they're great. And she asked about the last interaction. I'm like, they're fine. They know that our talk was based on love, that we tell them they need to listen. Yeah, I know it's put the chair in, you're listening. It may be down. You don't know what's going on. It may be stop, a car's coming. You have to do what you're told immediately without having to say, but walk. And so she left on that positive note where the girls she knew the girls loved her, and that they took from our 2-hour conversation off and on just the love. And then we did our nighttime prayers in the car, passed the phone back to put her on speakerphone, and we did our nighttime prayer together.
Okay.
Oh my gosh, you could probably get the picture of her that I have from the airport. I was so annoyed. My little daughter is so stoic. She doesn't hug that much. And it's like, hug your mommy. And she hugged her, but it was kind of like a halfway hug. Yeah. It's like, all right, Mom, and it was her hug.
Right. Yeah.
We always preach to our girls about knowing your surroundings, being aware of your environment. She was no different. She would preach to our girls about that too. She would leave work at night, coming down the stairs by herself at dark. I would tell her, you have to be careful. There's that little air-conditioned area, big wall. You got to be aware of your surroundings. I want your mate. Did she have her keys in her on her hand? Oh shit, she had my keys.
Did your keys? What sort of keys were they?
I don't believe this. She had her keys. She has mace on her key ring. I tell her whenever you're leaving, going in dark at night, always have your finger on it. Your purse doesn't do any good. If you carry a gun, you have your hand on it. It doesn't do any good if it's not accessible.
Based on Mark's perspective, the detective should be looking at a grieving father mourning and weeping over every bit of detail confidently in the case. But that opinion changed in just a few days as some of the family members didn't corroborate this story. For instance, he just talked about how his daughter believed that her parents were in love and how they were content together. But the truth is,
couldn't no longer rely on Mark for anything. It sounded like she was at the end of a rope. It sounded like she was at the end of a rope. She never said, I'm going to get divorced. Mm-hmm. She never, but you can hear in her voice that she was in a place with Mark where she really felt like, I can't even rely on him for the bare essentials. Someone to take care of my girls. Teresa made it known to Mark that divorce would not be an option, but how the hell am I going to live with you? You're driving me crazy. I also know that she came to a place where she told me, and I believe she told Mark, I'm no longer afraid to get divorced.
If this is the kind of conversation Teresa was having with her closest, why would Mark be putting up a sob show over her loss? We're not saying that he's cold enough to not mourn the loss, but there is a plausible cause that some religiously tight family members never opt for divorce, so the partners decide to do something incredibly heinous, like murder to save face. Now, while that's just a theory, it only gets validated by how close the two were in the eyes of everyone else.
Relax, stop hurting yourself. Just focus
I'm just trying to focus, that's why I did. That's why I'm not.
Okay. Now, talking about your relationship, have you guys been contemplating any kind of separation or divorce? Has there been any marital problems?
No.
How about 6 months ago?
No.
How about a year ago?
No. Oh, she would talk occasionally. She gets mad. She has her temper.
Sure.
Which is not temper. She just yells. Your office looks like a mess. Our whole house is chaos. Clean your office.
Right.
This is the kind of thing that's going to make it happen.
He was not your guy, so he was comfortable. He seemed to be comfortable playing the Mr. Mom position. But let's face it, he's a man. Teresa did say, I wish I could get somebody else to do the office, run the office finances, which Mark did not do during the day. Mark did it at night. He was not physically in the office during the day. He was taking care of the girls during the day, running them back and forth to wherever they had to go. And at nighttime, he would go and he would take care of either work in his home office, which if you saw his home office, it looked like somebody took 15 garbage cans worth of paper and threw it everywhere. Mm-hmm. Teresa was disgusted. She had to keep his office door.
The divorce, or the office, working together, having everything commingled, not having a personal life. We're at the office together sometimes. We're always talking about work at home. It's hard for us to have our time.
Closed. So she did say, I wish that Mark didn't have to be here, but Jesus, then I got to pay somebody $85,000 a year, and I don't have it. But I know she had she told me that she was going to sit down with Mark and was going to talk to him about, why don't you go to school? Why don't you do something for you? Let's figure out how we can transition you. That's one less thing we have to argue about, the business. She called me up, hysterical, couldn't understand a word she was saying, was convinced something horrific happened, got her to calm down, but this is just to paint the picture of how she literally was so blown away by how this happened, what it meant in terms of her faith in Mark to be able to do the one and only thing she knew he was good at, the finance.
And she goes, this is the kind of thing that can cause marital problems. And she commented about divorces. I don't joke about the D word. I don't throw it around. I take our vows seriously. We have vows for 75 years. People say they'll be together forever. We're like, well, let's be real. 75 years is good. We put on our wedding vows. 75 to go.
You guys are funny.
So on our anniversary, on our 10-year anniversary, it was 65 to go on our anniversary card.
Oh my God. You guys are funny.
We are changing our relationship in the office. What she does to help patients is changing. Where she's going in her practice with Lenka, with the TV show, with the book she's going to write. With everything we were gearing to do.
Was shifting that dynamic
and
to where it would have created more personal time.
But it was also the same time when she was like about stressing us. It's like, don't worry about us.
Right.
We are solid. I'm not going elsewhere. You're not going elsewhere. We have no issues. We know you have to focus. She was concerned she didn't have sex as much as I wanted. It's like, I never give you a hard time over that.
Right.
I could play and try to, get her going and stuff and say, leave me alone. I've got to go to work kind of thing. And I had done that for years. It's like, I respect you. I try to do that. And it's like, we're good. Whether we have sex once a week, once a month, or 4 times a day. That's not your measure of love for me.
No.
Right. And I know that we have, guys, we have other outlets. It's like, that's not.
Were they involved in anything kind of out of the ordinary as far as having different partners or outside of relationship, anything inside or outside of their relationship?
When I came into the life,
when
I came into the life, that's when you see a lot of shifts. You can kind of put that together. She had, she lived on the edge in every single way. She was very aware of that, and she was trying to change it. And she had addictions, obviously, and this and that.
What type of addictions?
Addictions with her self-image, this whole eating, and it's actually called some kind of it's actually a disease with that when you're controlling her food. Then she had an issue with the pot. Then she had, the sexual orientation. Then she had, if you would know her, she had such an excess energy that had no outlet out there, and so I know she was depressed. I know that she had a medication on depression that was written on Mark's name, because she didn't want to have a paper trail that she was taking it. She was a very explosive person. Like I said, living on the edge, she lived on the edge. And I don't know if you got that from just watching her on TV and stuff, but one thing maybe I should have tell you is that I felt that she never had a sanctuary to go to. This was the place that she worked, and this was stressful, and then she came home and it was stress there. He drove her crazy. Because
my personal opinion is she would take her personal life into work, and she would go crazy because something was wrong. I think she was too stretched out. Our mother's home, 2 or 3 other organizations that she was working with, and her time was just shortened. So all the craziness that she had at other facilities or whatever, she took it all out on. The doctor was very strong. She ran the business. She ran her home. Mark took care of the kids. Mark homeschooled the kids. He would come in, bring her lunch, and come in after hours to do the books that he was supposed to do. Mark had 2 personalities. He would have the personality when he was in back in the office, and he'd be chit-chatting. But when a female would come in, if it was a marketer or anybody who was kind of like an attractive, like Mark, he would go out there and say, "Hey, my name is Mark Sievers. I'm the office manager here. Who are you?" And he kind of all of a sudden he'd go from this to this. Go figure, right?
Is anybody power of attorney? Power of attorney over any of her accounts, businesses?
I have no idea. I'm guessing me. I don't know. We have
apart from you.
Oh, no, I don't think so.
So no one's got access to her funds.
No one have it. There'd be nobody. I spoke to our financial advisor, who's a really good friend. It's like a father. He's also telling me what I need to do. He goes, "Stop crying. Stop doing this. You have to take care of your girls. You have to do this. You have to get this stuff to me. You have to do all these things." And I know it's just, I'm doing as much as I can as people are telling me. And I feel I guess I feel pathetic. But at the same time, there's so much going on. But it's hard. I feel that I could have stopped this from happening. How do I get over that? She had so much to offer the world. Mm-hmm. She was really, everyone says this about their wife, their kids are special. My kids are phenomenal. Sure. I should have been home. Well, she really is on track to change the world. She has her own TV show. She's going to take healthcare to a whole other level. My daughter said, "Daddy, she shouldn't have to go through life without mommy." But you're
right? None of it's. Kids are amazing like that. Kids are amazing like that. I have an 8 and I have a 14-year-old, so they're amazing. They're gonna help you out a lot, and you're gonna be good for them too.
I'm not gonna say I'm sorry. I say it instinctively, and everyone's telling me to shut up. I just, I'm trying to control it because I want to be able to get through this. I get to see our doggies. I want to see our doggies, take pictures, and bring them home for my babies because they miss their doggies.
Sure, absolutely. Or we'll make sure that happens.
While Teresa was profiled by a local magazine and bestowed with various awards and achievements, her personal life was crumbling as she was about to call it quits with her sloppy husband. Also, in Lisa's conversation with the investigator, she picked up an important detail about Mark's hysterical crying, which compels us to believe that all this crying is just for show.
She said before Mark even knew she was dead, after he got the call that she hadn't shown up, he was absolutely hysterical crying. I was with him on the front lawn.
Mm-hmm. Which, to me, it seems a little odd because I know my family and wife, it's common sometimes your phone doesn't get charged. It's not a big deal that you're running a little bit late. Why are you so hysterical before you find out something horrible happened?
Exactly, and having been in the same situation, I think we all have. I mean, you may even go as far to say, I've got a really bad feeling about this because, let's face it, your gut is your gut. Teresa was involved in so many charitable things, and she was so saintly in her ability to just at the drop of a hat, even if she had to make patients wait, she would run. Now, would she have called the office to let them know? Of course she would have, but you never know.
Sure. But you never know, like I said, you never know. Well, did she forget to charge her phone? Did the phone break? You never know what could happen. That could be
you lose her
totally
phone,
innocent.
Which happened all the time. Did the car not work and she didn't have her cell phone because she left it at the airport? A million things.
How could Mark get so incredibly hysterical over just one call about her disappearance? His mother was a witness to how he immediately broke down in tears as if he knew that something bad had already happened to her. Now, based on his alibi, we know he didn't kill his wife, but what if he knew it was happening? That's the link we need to find out together, because so far we know that 1, their marriage wasn't working out, 2, divorce wasn't an option, and 3, she didn't like how lazy he was and wanted him to get a job. But is that enough to murder your wife?
Okay. Life insurance. Do you have life insurance on yourself or the kids, or do you have life insurance?
We have no life insurance on the children.
Okay.
We talked about it for years, haven't done it.
Yeah.
I have life insurance on myself. They asked me about that at the funeral home. Mm-hmm. I completely forgot about life insurance.
How much do you have on you?
2.5
million?
Yes.
And how much do you have?
I have to look. I have to call him. I actually spoke to Frank this morning, like her surrogate dad. He has all the records. I think it's going to be...
Excuse me. Say that again. And what relation to you guys?
He's like a surrogate father. He is amazing man. He has a wealth finance company.
Insurance? Okay.
No, he's wealth. I mean, they talked, lectured together. He's like her daughter. She's like his daughter. Father's Day cards, that kind of thing, and go swimming together. And so her dad died a few years ago, and
so he's definitely.
They have such a loving environment. Right. They adopted our daughters. You know, their surrogate granddaughters.
Sure.
And he would have all that information.
Does he also? Do you guys have a personal accountant? Or someone, you said, or is he the one that helps you with like your taxes?
He helped us with that. He helped us get an accountant that we have to. And I asked this morning, and I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And he goes, "Well, you got to do the life insurance." I go, I don't. You have that stuff, you know. So he's going to go through that stuff and do what has to be done.
Mark, who is a man who is on top of numbers, and that's his thing. You don't forget a number like that. So then when I finally find out, and I believe it was my brother Frank, that it was $5 million, I said, "What? How the hell could he say, I have no idea?" You could say, well, I know it's a lot, at least $1 million. Mm-hmm. But you don't have no idea when it's $5 million. So when Mark told Frankie it was $5 million, my brother Frank said, "Oh, so you checked with the insurance policy and you found out." And Mark said, "No, I always knew it was $5 million.
This might be the intent we were looking for this entire time. He claims he didn't know, but when he talked to his brother-in-law, he just blurted it out. $5 million. If there is a link between him and this murder, 90% chance the insurance money was the intent to kill. But there was no link made as of yet. One other possible theory explored by the detectives is whether this was a burglary. There were signs of a forced entry, pry marks on a side door, but what didn't make sense was that Mark's extensive gun collection and $40,000 in cash discovered inside the Sievers home hadn't been touched. The cameras of the house were also disabled, so whoever did it was careful and planned it. Someone with a strong technical knowledge, and someone who was linked to Mark Sievers. Nearly everyone questioned had the same story, but by July 9th, 2015, investigators received a break in the case. Chief Jeff Hamilton of the Southern Illinois Airport Authority called to say that he may have some information regarding the homicide. He said an acquaintance overheard information regarding a certain someone who was in Florida at the time of the killing and might be involved in some way. That witness testimony wasn't just a lead. It led to 2 successful arrests.
And then I asked him what he went down there for, and he said to make money. And then asked him how does he make money, and it was murdering Mark's wife.
Okay. Who is Teresa Sievers?
Yeah.
The doctor?
Yes.
Okay. And did he say how he murdered her?
With a hammer.
And why do you think he would use a hammer?
Jimmy.
Is that his weapon of choice? Or?
Yes.
From what you were telling me, do they call him the Hammer? He calls himself the Hammer, or what's?
Everybody calls him Jimmy the Hammer. All of his friends back home,
And you had indicated to me that's because that's his weapon of choice whenever he has to do something.
yes, I said, "Did you shoot her?" And he said, "No." And I said, "Then how'd you kill her?" And he made a stupid little chuckle that he does, and then said, "With a hammer."
He said with a hammer?
Yeah.
This was the voice of Taylor Shoemaker, the girlfriend of one of the homicide suspects, Jimmy Ray Rogers. This was a man who used Facebook daily to post memes, comment on the status of the country, and had a record, and engaged in infidelity a lot. He called himself Jimmy the Hammer Rogers on Facebook, which was his weapon of choice. Plus, it was consistent with the cause of death of Dr. Sievers, bludgeoned to death from a hammer covered in hair and blood. Just 3 days before the unfortunate incident, Rogers had posted this on his wall, a coupon that allowed him to kill. But that still doesn't tie him in any possible way to the kill. Rogers was a stranger to the Sievers family, and when he was interrogated, he chose not to speak and wished to speak to a lawyer instead. That still didn't stop the officers from arresting him, but as they dug deep into his Facebook account, his phone records and whatnot, they found the link, the connection.
I don't know. I'm just telling you what.
I know you know more than that, okay? Listen, you have been through a lot in your life, and you are newly married, and I understand your loyalty to your husband, but I want you to understand something. Depending on how things go, and facts and truths, there's things called principal, there's things called accessory, after the fact, and things of that nature.
This was the Lee County detective grilling down on Angela Wright, the wife of Curtis Wayne Wright Jr. The two got recently married in 2015, and the person attending their funeral was none other than Mark Sievers. Turns out, Wright was his childhood pal and a Facebook friend of Jimmy Rogers. And the only reason they're under suspicion is because Angela Wright told the detectives where her husband was at the time of Teresa Sievers' death.
Come on.
I don't.
You know what happened. Just tell me what you do know. What you do know for fact is that Wayne took a trip somewhere.
He went on a business trip, he said, yes.
Yeah, where did he take a business trip to?
He said he was going to, I forget the name of the town. It's in Florida, but on the other side of Florida.
Where was he going to Florida? What was the business trip for?
He does auction stuff with Jerry Lubinsky. And Jerry has Titusville. That's where.
Business trip for auctions with Jerry Lubinsky in Titusville?
Mm-hmm.
You understand I'm going to talk to Jerry Lubinsky, right?
That's fine. I mean, I don't know. I'm just telling you what.
I know you know more than that, okay? Listen, you have been through a lot in your life, and...
Later on, Lubinsky would tell authorities he did not see Wright during this time. So the question remained, what did Curtis do in Florida during the June weekend? Let's find out.
Yeah, they are. Okay. I'm David. We talked briefly already. Mm-hmm. You wanted to call Wayne, right? Okay. Alright. They Mirandized you at the scene, correct? Yeah. A form of it. Either way, I want to formally read you your rights, and that way you're informed before we speak. It's up to you. Okay. I want you to understand, and I want to answer all your questions, and I want you to answer mine. Sure. And you understand that works. You can stop talking anytime. So it's up to you. Yeah. With these rights in mind, will you still talk to me now? Sure. Okay. All right. I work for the Lee County Sheriff's Office down in Florida, and I understand you were recently down there.
Yes.
Okay. Can you tell me about your most recent trip?
Yeah. I guess I can't remember what day it was, Monday or Tuesday. Scott, Mark Sievers' brother, Scott, called us that morning and told us have been killed. And, because I've been friends with their family for a long time.
Okay.
And so Angie and I, it really wasn't even really a choice. I mean, we packed the car up. My car's in the shop, so we went and rented a car and drove down there to be with the girls and to help out however we could.
Sure. It's a hard time.
With the funeral arrangements and things. So,
mm-hmm.
So we drove straight through. Well, she drove. I can't. But she drove straight through. And we got down there, and then we were just there. We stayed with her mom most of the time, or with Mark and Scott's mom.
Mark,
Bonnie Sievers.
Okay, yes.
So we stayed with Bonnie majority of the time, so because that's where Mark and the girls were staying.
At Bonnie's house?
Yes.
Okay.
And and I know that at different points down there, I know you guys had talked to Mark and Bonnie and them, and that's why I asked them while we were down there. I was like, I was kind of surprised you guys didn't want to talk to us, but
right.
But the we stayed through the funeral, and then once the house was released, Mark had told me that they were trying to figure out if him and the girls were going to go back to the house or not. Depending on that would be hard. So
absolutely.
Mark had asked me. I used to before I was disabled, I used to do security work. So with cameras, video camera, surveillance, and not really security.
Like installation
thing, yeah.
Okay.
So he asked me if I could help him figure out something for the house. So
sure.
We went and picked up a surveillance system, and I installed it. Angie and I actually installed it. I can't remember which days it was, but it was a couple days it took to do it, and then the next day we left and drove back home. We didn't get home until 6 o'clock yesterday morning. So.
Even though that's not the Florida trip the detective wanted to know, it was important to note that he attended the wedding, touched base with Mark, and even helped him with something related to the surveillance camera. Remember how we said earlier that the cameras of the house were off at the time of the homicide? Might have been his doing. Another thing to note was because his car was in the shop, he used a rental to drive to the wedding. If he used the same rental to drive up to Florida for that business trip, there can be GPS information that proves his presence at the crime scene. Also, we're as clueless as you are about why he's sitting in his underwear, so let's just bear that together.
But
So yeah, for this trip that you were just down in Florida, because Scott calls you and says Mark's wife's passed.
Yeah. Didn't really know anything about what happened.
Didn't I tell you anything?
I can't. He didn't tell me anything because nobody knew anything really.
Sure.
I don't remember if he said that she passed away or that she was killed. I don't remember what he actually said. But
Scott or Mark?
Yeah.
Okay, what did Mark
talk to Mark at that point.
When you finally talked to Mark, what did he say?
Well, it was kind of hard to talk to Mark. He was pretty hysterical, really, for the first week we were down there, and I really didn't get a whole lot of. He was just upset. He was, freaking out. He was so worried about the girls, and then the funeral arrangements, but her family, pretty much her entire family flew back in from Connecticut down there, so it was just really hectic the whole time when we first got down there, because her mom was there and her sisters, which I knew because I was at their wedding. So it was so a lot of those people I had met. I wouldn't say I knew them, but I had met them, and so it was the horrible circumstances. To say, it's good to see you again. But we just let Mark know that we were there. And let his mom know that we were there.
Yes.
So that, we could keep the kids if they needed to go
whatever
to the funeral home. And
well, it's just nice for all of them.
Just as a distraction.
Sure. Sure.
Because the kids didn't know. They knew that Mommy had died, they didn't tell him what happened until the night before the funeral.
What they say?
Well, they just said that, well, I wasn't there when they told her, but told them that that's when they told them that somebody had broken into the house and that Mommy was actually killed. So, but not that, up until that point, they just knew that she died.
Sure.
So I don't know what he told them, if they even asked. I'm not really sure.
Sure. How'd they take it?
Took it. Josie's the older one.
Yeah.
She took it pretty hard, but kids, we're going through this now because her daughter Angie's daughter passed away 4 months ago.
What was her name? Chelsea?
Chelsea, yeah. And she was,
she's about 5 years younger than him, right?
Angie is 42 and we're 46.
Okay.
So
yeah, about 4 or 5 years.
And the reason though is that Mark dated Kathy's sister.
And Kathy?
And Kathy at one point. Yeah. So the
Mark sticks around, man.
And but Shelley was Kathy's sister.
Okay.
And who is way younger than Kathy is. So we all went to school together, Mark and Shelley and so when that's how I met Mark was because my girlfriend knew Shelley.
Cool.
And that's how.
So before this recent trip, when Scott called you and you left on the 30th of June, it was Tuesday. When was the last time you went to see Mark?
Well, I don't know exactly when it was, but I'm thinking maybe 5 or 6 months, maybe.
So January-ish.
So, yeah.
January, February-ish. 2015 then.
So I'm pretty sure it was.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that was to set up computers or to continue, you set up the computers in 2014 or when?
Yes.
And then so January was an update?
Yeah. That would have been for some kind of an upgrade. Some of the stuff I can do remotely. Most of it I can do remotely.
Right.
I seldom ever have.
Right, and you have the extra equipment.
And but it was something crashed. It was something on the server. And it was one of those things I worked on it for a while, trying to straighten it out.
Do that.
So, because once I remote into the system, as long as the system's up and it's not a problem with connectivity, I can connect to it. Once I connect to it, it's just like I'm sitting there. Other than if something physically has to be changed. But with servers, they're kind of designed for that. Most servers don't even have monitors on them or keyboards.
Right.
So,
right.
It's really designed for remote management.
Even though the detective is listening to literally hours of stories, he's also building a rapport with him. Right now, he's ascertained that Mike wasn't always a tied-down guy and was quite the ladies' man. Also, since Wright is such a tech-savvy guy who can remotely control Mike's home system, he could have used the same system to shut off the cameras. He also claims that his last interaction with Mike was 6 months ago, even though we know for a fact that Mike attended his wedding in May of 2015, just a month before the homicide. Deep down, there is an insidious reason why he chose to conceal his last interaction with Mike, but we'll get to that later. Right now, the detective has to go through his series of lies before he starts turning up the heat.
Between January then and the funeral trip, did you make any other trips to Florida?
No.
Okay. So before Tuesday, June 30th,
because he came up for the wedding.
So yeah. All right. So Mark saw you in May, right?
Yes.
You're saying your wedding.
Yeah.
Okay. So May, June. Now we're in June. At the end of June, on June 30th, you traveled to Florida for the funeral, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Same trip, yes.
Sure, no problem. All right, so let's just go back. Help me out here. What's your timeline? Let's go back Monday the 29th. What did you do that day?
Monday. That was the day before Mark called.
Yep, Scott. Yep, day before Scott. What were you doing that day?
Well, that weekend was one of the weekends that I was down for the weekend pretty much. Angie worked.
What do you mean down? Like pain?
Hurting, yeah.
So you stayed in bed all weekend?
Well, not all weekend. I was up. I was trying to do things around the house.
Sure.
I just didn't feel like really doing.
What was getting you the most?
Yeah, my shoulders.
The shoulders?
So,
and the hips?
Yeah. So I couldn't really do any bending over work or reaching up work or anything like that. So I tried to get caught up on some stuff on the computer. But it was one of the days, I can't remember if it was Sunday or Monday, I worked on, I also do some car work too. I help people with stuff. And
like, do you physically do mechanic work?
Yeah. My dad was a mechanic.
Oh, cool. So you actually got the mind of the engineer. Nice. Nice. All right, so Saturday.
It was somewhere local. It was
somewhere local. Nowhere far.
No.
Okay. So Saturday is June 27th, and you were working in the morning. You went through hell with these damn tools. And then you called it a day because by that point your hips, your shoulders were hot. It was hot. Enough is enough. Especially that kind of frustration. I've been there. You want to explode it. Yeah. You want to blow it up. So then Sunday, did you do anything? Sunday, June 28th.
Yeah. Angie worked Sunday.
Where'd she work?
She works at Nicolay.
I gotta take a break to use the bathroom and get some water. Can I get you some water? Do you need a bathroom break? Do you want me to get you some food?
Probably. No, I'm okay.
Okay.
Yeah, another water break.
Yep. Sit tight, okay? Mm-hmm. Thank you.
So far, it's been all stories and no pressure. But in the past 2 hours, he's lied about, number one, where he was during the weekend because his wife says he claimed he was going on a business trip in Florida. And two, he lied about his last interaction with Mike. So, with the power of technology and the testimony of Angela Wright and Taylor Shoemaker, the detective is about to step into the room armed with evidence that refutes everything he's been saying so far.
Yeah.
Okay. So, again, I want to ask you, because once you understand something, I'm here from Florida, which means there's things I know, and I'm here to provide you an opportunity now to explain yourself. A lot of questions I ask, I already know answers to. So what I want to submit to you, because you're obviously highly intelligent, is I know you use more than one phone, number one. Okay?
Okay.
Follow me here. I know you do. I know this as a fact. How we want to go from here is really simple. You're not a bad guy at all. That's obvious. You prioritize your children. You work hard. You provide for them. That shows what kind of person you are. However, I believe Mark Sievers involved you in something that he never should have. Some ideas and thoughts and plans that never should have happened. And as a result, we now have someone who's dead. So I don't just come up to Florida on a whim. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So between the phones, the rental cars, GPS, the locations, text messages from another mother, you know what I'm talking about. It's very unfortunate. But either way, here we are. So what I want to ask you is, are you the kind of person who is a monster and randomly kills people, or are you the kind of person who has had a hard life and has their best friend begging them to do something they shouldn't have done, or they may not have done directly, but they should not have helped plan it or be involved in it at all?
Neither.
What kind of person are you?
To really step into the detective's mind, we have to know what he knows. And what he knows is that inside Wayne's rental car was a Garmin GPS. And that GPS shows us that on the morning of June 27, 2015, Wright drove from his residence to Rogers's at around 7 a.m. And after the stop at Wright's house, the new location was 27034 Jarvis Road. En route, they stopped at a gas station and were caught on surveillance tapes. Wright and Rogers arrived at the Sievers' home at approximately 6 a.m. on the morning of June 28th. They entered the property and disabled the security alarm before leaving and taking another drive. The men were caught on surveillance tape at a local Walmart store where they purchased trash bags, wet wipes, black towels, black shoes, and a lock-picking kit. They then returned to the Sievers' home and waited for several hours until Teresa returned, and that's when the two did the unthinkable. Deputies had gathered, through subpoena, phone records of Wright and Rogers, which further confirmed their involvement. And while there's not much of a paper trail that ties Mark into the equation, the detective has his suspicions based on the insurance angle and the divorce angle. But for now, let's focus on the suspect at hand.
Here's the deal. In Florida, we have different degrees of homicide. We have first degree premeditated homicide, where we can actually show planning went into it. People intentionally went out of their way to set up communications with each other out of the sight of the normal public, as well as law enforcement. Then people made travel arrangements that were convenient. And then people made other travel arrangements that were convenient, so they thought. And then they go to a house, they take someone's life, and they make it look a certain way, but then the police aren't stupid enough to believe it. And then we find the evidence during cleanup, when people are repositioning things and trying to make things go a certain way. So, through all of that, and then independent information from other people, further research, and what's so crazy is the amount of cameras in the world now, in neighborhoods, that you can't ever really plan for unless you literally stalk out a neighborhood, as well as the corner gas stations, and then all the, tags and license plate readers to the federal government, Big Brother type shit. So it all kind of comes together, and through a lot of painstaking hours, we're able to present a picture and show who's involved. So, again, I want to ask you, before I move forward without your side of the story, what kind of person are you?
Yeah.
Does anything I say right now make sense to you?
Well, what you're saying makes sense.
Wayne,
I understand the logic in it.
Wayne, I have your own family putting you driving down to Florida in a rental car and leaving your phone behind, which I know you have another phone. So you left that phone behind because you knew if something like this happened, we would look at your phone records. But we can look at multiple phone records, just so you understand. Technology has evolved to the point of where the public doesn't know everything, and that movie weird shit that you see, that you think that isn't real, it has become real. And the cool part is, through federal task force and agencies and resources, little guys like me at a sheriff's office get to touch those things because the feds want to be able to have their hand in it. So there's all kinds of stuff I know, which has led me here. And I brought a SWAT team to your house for a reason. Okay? So, again, the best thing I've ever seen from my experience in working these cases is when people get in front of it and say, I'm sorry, I wasn't thinking straight, I didn't mean to do that. If I had to do it all over again, I wouldn't have done it, or I would have done it, and here's why. Because they did this to me, and that should have never happened. Or they did this to my loved one, and they should have never done that, and I made it right. Or maybe that's not the circumstance. So I want to ask you again, listen, are you the kind of guy who helps plan a cold-blooded, premeditated homicide that deserves to have a needle with a lethal injection put in their arm, or Old Sparky electric chair? Or are you the kind of person that got involved because of a best friend and his lack of maturity and life choices had him in a failing marriage that he was about to be booted out of. But conveniently, there was a lot of life insurance money, and it worked out.
My understanding was that, those two were an incredible couple.
They were. However, their passion, because both of them were so passionate people, it didn't work out. As wonderful as a lady as she was, from what I understand, she was a ball buster. And not just up front to patients. That patient has to deal with her for a limited window. 15 minutes to an hour and a half of their day. Because like you said, she took the extra time. She cared enough to help people, and she kind of worked people one way or the other. Like, this is crazy, or I love it. She changed my life, and I'm going to come back to her because she's real. However, they don't live with Teresa. To live day in and day out and have someone break your balls about how little cleaning you do, how screwed up your office is, how your paperwork's building up, how dirty the damn house is. What do? What is your purpose, Mark? You raise the kids, that's great. I love that because you are Mr. Mom and you'd be hard to replace, but about to kind of go a different path and take her show on the road, get her own TV show, turn her business into a traveling practice after she met other co-workers out in the field that did the same thing, and she saw how well they were doing. She said, shit, this is real. We're already homeschooling them. All I got to do is get out of my house and get out of this business, which they were close to doing. But part of that, I think she was about to get out of Mark, too. Because as wonderful as a father is, that's fine. I think you do, because Mark and you are best friends, and you talk all the time, which I have records to prove.
Yeah, we do.
You're aware of all that. Mark and were very much the sexual Magellans, and they explored and they experimented and did all kinds of things. And I know you knew about that too.
We don't talk about his.
Mark talks about that shit very easily. He loves talking about the different girls that he likes him to go out in bed. He said that to me himself.
Okay.
You're his boy. You're his best friend. You know this stuff.
Now, this is the twisted side of the relationship, which Wright knew very well about. According to the 1,000-page document released by the state attorney's office, Mark had jotted down sexual encounters he had with his wife on a calendar. And in some of the text messages, he revealed to Wayne that she fantasized about him. They had a serious line of sexually explicit messages, which later turned into frustration. As time progressed, the fantasy started becoming more explicit, and on one occasion, Mark wrote about Wright being in town to work on the computer network in the office. Teresa told him that Wright had whispered in her ear, "Maybe next time," and she laughed. As of now, Wayne is at the point of no return because he's caught red-handed from every possible angle. So his only choice now is to calmly confess and tie the loose ends on how the three orchestrated the crime.
Well, here, let me lay it out for you, because this is where we're going. Your own wife puts you out of town when you said you're in bed all weekend. I know you were out of town. You know why I know you're out of town? Because I have records to prove it. But then I have the corroboration of your own wife, okay, who actually thought she was covering for you and lied about how you went to Titusville.
I was supposed to go down there.
But you didn't. You went somewhere else.
No, I told you I was planning to go down.
Yes, you were planning, but you weren't feeling well, so you stayed home is what you said. I stayed in my neighborhood. I didn't leave Missouri. That's a lie. You do a little twitch and you give yourself away when you do. So this is what I'm asking. Are you the kind of person that helped plan the cold-blooded murder, or did you get wrapped up in something that you didn't mean for to happen, and you were there to talk to someone and explain to them how they need to appreciate your friend and make better life choices, and then she came at you and things just unfolded?
No, nothing like that happened.
Why were you down there in Benita Springs?
I wasn't.
Where were you at?
This is obvious that I thought I was coming here to help you.
You are helping me. So where did you go in Florida?
I guess I'm done talking. You're not going to believe
I'll be quiet. I'll be quiet. Tell me when.
I'm done.
You're done what?
I'm done talking then, I guess.
So you want to let your DNA and fingerprints tell the story then?
Yeah.
Okay, and the photographs of you? Yes or no?
Right. If there's photographs, yeah.
And GPS.
So,
okay.
I mean,
we can do that. Listen, I traveled from Florida, and I want to clarify. If I'm done, because you continue to engage me and talk, will you continue to talk to me or not? Do you want me to be quiet and listen to your explanation?
No, there's no explanation. So, no, I can't. I thought I was here to help you, and
you weren't.
To give you information, and that's why I was more than happy to do that. But
where were you that week?
Obviously believed that I had something to do with this, and
tell me you didn't.
There's no. I told you I didn't. I don't know anything about this.
Do you really?
I was at home on Monday when they called.
Do you really believe that Mark's going to stand on this? Do you really think he's not going to turn it around once we get him?
I don't believe that Mark had anything to do with it. So if you
listen, whether you want to claim it's because of your head injury or financial issues or someone attacked you and you defended yourself, which is probable. It is probable because you went down there and your family, friends. You've known Mark how long? 9th grade? That's a long time to know someone. So that means you love him like family, right?
Yeah.
You care a lot about him, okay?
Which is family.
You are his family. And I have that friend who is my family. They're damn near closer to me than some of my family. I would go talk to their wife for them. But again, Spitfire, I could see her getting out of hand real quick. And that makes sense. That you would have to defend yourself. Especially, you can't afford to let yourself get hit in the head one more time.
Like I said, there's nothing else that I can tell you. So, you told me that if I decided that I was done talking, that I could do that. So,
are you done?
I can't tell you anything else. I've told you everything that I could tell you.
Okay, so you're refusing to talk still? Or do you want to explain yourself?
I'm not refusing to talk. I told you everything that I could tell you.
Okay. So, just so I clarify then, why would your wife say you were out of town?
I don't have any idea.
Okay.
I told you I had a trip planned for that weekend. I didn't feel good.
And you stayed home?
I didn't go anywhere.
Okay. Is that where you want to leave it?
There's nowhere else for it to be left.
We'll save you some hours by telling you that he doesn't confess about his involvement at all. So, after a lot of back and forth, the detective exits the room. And to make sure that the guilt truly falls on him, the detective allows his wife to enter the room. This can be seen as a tactic that compels the criminal to realize that he's not walking free after this. So, after such an emotional reunion, he may be inclined to give up some information in exchange for a chance at a reduced sentence.
Hey, she was waiting in the lobby. She wanted to see.
They're saying that they think I had something to do with this.
Yeah, no. I just heard them on the phone.
They think I had something to do with this.
Yeah, no. I just heard them on the phone.
Yeah.
Hi. You gotta go. How much longer? I'm gonna walk him over to a holding cell.
For what?
He's getting help. I'll fill you in later. Baby. Thank you. Great. Thank you for your patience. Thank you. Alright, Mr. Wright, go stand up for me. Turn up the transfer on that. Let's see right in here. You alright? Yeah. Okay, let's walk this way.
The reality is he maintained silence on the case as his fate of being sentenced to life grew closer and closer. But finally, the repercussions of losing everything got to him, which is when he entered a plea deal.
Mr. Wright, who killed Dr. Teresa Sievers?
Jimmy Rogers and I physically did it, but Mark Sievers was also involved in the planning.
Why did you do it?
I was asked to do it.
By whom?
Mr. Sievers.
Have you exercised your right to go to trial, or have you exercised any other option regarding the disposition of your case?
I entered a plea agreement to help to cooperate.
And what is your understanding of the plea agreement to cooperate, sir?
That I'm to testify truthfully in exchange for a 25-year prison sentence.
So if you tell the truth, you go to prison for 25 years?
Yes.
What happens if you don't tell the truth?
The plea's off the table, and I'm not sure how that would work, but I would...
Well, the 25 years is off the table, right?
Right. That's what I meant. I'm sorry.
To participate in that wedding?
Yes, I did.
What was his role?
We didn't have like a normal formal wedding where there were groomsmen and bridesmaids and things like that, but I had two people in my wedding. I considered them both best men.
And so Mr. Sievers was a groomsman. You invited him to be a groomsman in your wedding?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, a best man. I had two.
Who was the other relationship with Mr. Rogers?
His friends.
Was your friendship with Mr. Rogers the same kind of friendship that you had with Mr. Sievers?
No.
Had your friendship with him lasted as long as the friendship you had with Mr. Sievers?
No.
Did Mr. Rogers bring a friend or a date with him to the festivities?
Yes.
Who did he bring?
Taylor Schumacher. I'm not sure how it's pronounced.
And Taylor is a man or a woman?
It's a woman.
It's like a girlfriend or something?
Yes. They actually they were engaged, and they have a baby together, so.
Did Mr. Sievers bring Dr. Sievers with him?
No.
Did he bring his daughters?
No.
Came by himself?
Yes.
So, the night of the wedding festivities, the night before you got married, you said there was a cookout at your home?
Yeah, it was kind of in the afternoon, but yeah. And then we all went out that evening.
To your knowledge, had Mr. Rogers and Mr. Sievers ever met before?
No, not in person. Actually, not even on the phone. I'm sure that they both knew who each other were through me, just from conversations.
So you had talked to Mr. Sievers and mentioned a friend named Jimmy?
Yeah, I'm sure I did.
And you maybe had talked to Mr. Rogers and mentioned a friend named Mark?
I know that I had talked to Jimmy and mentioned Mark because we had so much interaction almost daily between the work stuff.
The wedding, did Mr. Sievers ask to speak with you?
You said prior to, right?
Prior to getting married.
Yes.
Did Mr. Sievers ask to speak with you?
Yes.
And how did he ask to speak with you?
The night before he came to Missouri, he sent me a text message telling me that he had something personal that he needed to talk to me about. He didn't say what it was, but
Okay.
He said that he'd hoped that we'd have some time to be able to talk privately.
So you're getting married, and Mr. Sievers about wanting to talk to you about.
Yes.
What did he tell you?
He told me that he and Teresa were having problems, marital problems. He told me that she was having an affair, and that they were having financial problems as well, considering bankruptcy.
Did you believe Mr. Sievers when he was telling you these things?
Yes.
Did you have any proof that she was having an affair or that they were having any financial problems or anything like that?
No.
You took his word for it?
Yes.
And that you got it at a discounted
Yes.
price?
Yes. Much discounted.
Okay, so that Saturday now, you're out there at the park, you're getting things together as you were explaining for your wedding to your wife Angela.
Yes.
And I think you said you thought you and Mr. Sievers were getting dressed.
I think that's during the time when this conversation happened.
And what did he say at this time?
He brought the situation back up. This time he told me that Teresa was actually leaving him. The night before, it was just that she was having an affair. So at this point, it's getting a little more involved. He said that she was actually leaving him, that she was taking the children and taking them out of state.
Okay, so
we talked about some different options as far as the marriage goes. I mentioned, about fighting her legally for custody. He said that wasn't an option. He wasn't financially in a place that he could be able to fight her for that. Just a couple other different things. I think we talked about maybe counseling.
When you say counseling, did y'all have another discussion?
Yes.
And what was that discussion about?
It was a continuation of the same conversation. So he brought it up again, told me, that she was leaving him, that he couldn't let her take the kids away from him, and again said that they were in danger, some kind of danger, without him there to be able to protect them.
Did he ask you to do anything?
Yeah, we talked about some more. It was the same options, just brought back up. And when we kind of exhausted that, he told me that really the only option that he had was for her to die. And he said that he needed to have her killed.
Okay, so...
In reality, Mark was already under suspicion of having involvement in the case because hours after Teresa's funeral, investigators saw Mark throw computer equipment into a dumpster behind their medical office. Based on everything that we showed you, Curtis Wayne Wright pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and was sentenced to 25 years in prison. Jimmy the Hammer Rogers was sentenced to life in prison. And Mark Sievers, the ungrateful, lazy husband who could have changed and worked on his marriage, but instead compelled his friends to do such an insidious task, was sentenced to death. Now, if you think this marriage was twisted, you need to watch my video on Seth Welch and Tatiana Fusari.